Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. This is like our fifth talk on the mentorship committee, and we're very honored and with great joy, I guess, I'm welcoming and having with us Dr. Stella Kafka. She is the executive director of the American Meteorological Society. But before we start the interview, so welcome, Dr. Kafka. Thank you for
Thank you. It's a
joining us and
pleasure to be
your
here.
time.
Thank
Uh,
you for having me. Hi, everyone.
so before we start, I would like Madam President, Diane Kunalaikis to offer a few words before we start.
Thank you, Nico. Thank you, Dr. Kafka, that we're really excited to have you here uh, tonight. When Nico first told me that he had met you and your extensive background, um, we were thrilled to hear that you would be joining us tonight and to really, talk about what is happening in this day and age and how climate affects us. Quite obviously, you have an extensive background. I know Nico's going to go through your credentials, which are outstanding. And we are really excited and thrilled to have you here this evening. I want to thank Nico again for coming up with a number of great speakers. And without further ado, let's take it away, Nico. Thank you. If you can all please put your mute your mics, that would be great. And then we can ask questions at the end.
Okay, thank you, Madam President. So, Dr. Kafka, welcome tonight, and again, thank you for joining us. And I would like to start. I would like to say this: you are the first Greek, person joining, that you are not, completely from Crete, and that is great. And I know you grew up in Athens, and your mom is from Cyprus. But tell us a little bit about your background. And I know you grew up in Athens, right? And you went to school there and to the University of Athens as the first degree. So let's start from that, and then we're gonna move forward.
Yeah. Yes, and actually, again, thank you for having me today. It's really nice, especially considering that I don't get to spend a lot of time with the Hellenic diaspora in here in the US. It's really wonderful to spend an evening with you. And again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. As Nicholas mentioned, I was born and raised in Athens, in Greece. My mother's from Cyprus, another glorious island of the Mediterranean. My father is from a teeny tiny village in Etolokarnania. It's called Etoliko. And they met in Athens 50 plus years ago, and here we are. Um, Long story short, here's me. I went to the University of Athens for my bachelor's in science. My bachelor's is in physics. And from there, I came in the United States for my master's and PhD. I have both master and PhD in astrophysics, with a minor actually in physics and geophysical sciences. Complicated, kind of to make my life more complicated. Um, so how detailed do you want me to be, Nikos, when it comes to my background? Because from there on, I started jumping around, like in different positions.
Yeah, actually, it was quite fascinating. But before we go to that journey, which is actually,
Mm.
a huge journey of diversity, I must say. Before we go to that, what made
Mm.
you, or what was attractive to you in astrophysics? And actually, we see your beautiful background, and
Yes, I mean
I,
between the universe
yeah,
and the fierce Earth.
and I know
Uh,
it's dear to your heart, but what makes you
yeah.
go there?
I'm a physicist. I always wanted to know how things work. And if you just think about it, when you look at kids, young kids, kids are your original scientists. They want to explore the world around them. They want to touch things, they want to taste things, they want to break things, they want to kind of experience things in order to learn about them. And then they start asking all these annoying questions. Why? Until you tell them, I told you so. That's why. But at the same time, it's this natural curiosity that as humans have to explore. and learn more about our surroundings, about the world we're immersed in. We're part of an ecosystem that we're really craving to learn about. So I kept being curious. I was very, very fortunate that both my parents encouraged this journey. My mother she retired, a high school teacher. Actually, she's an archaeologist by degree, and she was teaching Greek and history and all kinds of stuff in high school. And my father's an electrician. He doesn't even have an advanced degree. But both for me and my brother, they really encouraged us to explore, to excel. They wanted us to get as much education as we could, and then from there on, just follow our dreams or follow our heart. I was a perfectionist, kind of still am. So, straight A student, it's more of a compulsion there, right? To excel in everything. So, in Greece, if you're not familiar with the Greek system, at the very end of high school, we have to select and go through an exam and go to the university, right? But you can't exactly go to university as undecided and then change your major throughout your studies, during your studies. So uh, I had to make a decision at some point when I was in high school what I wanted to do as a career, what I wanted to follow. And I was actually between archaeology and physics.
I wonder why.
And then I realized, just Indiana Jones, right, style, just running around and digging and unearthing the Earth's past. So, which is one of my passions right now, because at some point I realized that you can actually sit down and read about archaeology, but I haven't heard anyone uh, flipping through a book of quantum dynamics for fun. So I wanted to understand nature better. So I followed physics, and from there on, the universe is a fascinating subject. It's exploring nature without even experiencing it. You have to be very smart about the techniques that you're using, about the data you acquire, and you have to be humble. You have to actually recognize that you're um, your conclusions might be incomplete. The new data might actually prove you wrong on what your your previous conclusions were, and have the kind of decency to say that new data show A, B, and C. And I can tell you another thing: astronomy is it's a beautiful science. It's a gorgeous science. The universe is vast. It's beautiful. It gives us perspective. There's lots to explore. It's uncharted territory, and there's a lot to even imagine, like four different dimensions, space and time, in with our limited, very limited imagination, to think about phenomena that are much, much bigger, much more dynamic than anything and everything we have or we could experience here on Earth. But at the same time, it provides us with a perspective where we belong in the whole ecosystem. We live on a rock around a really boring star. Our boring star in the rock is 4.5 billion years old, and we're going to live for 100 years, right?
Yep.
So, right, a little bit of
Time,
soul searching there.
time is very relative when you think it that way.
Beg
But
pardon?
time is very relative when you think it that way, when you
Time is
study the universe, actually.
time is definitely relative, but if not anything else, it makes you appreciate those 100 years on this planet. It helps you kind of see things in perspective and not sweat the small stuff. Appreciate the people around you. Please appreciate nature. Appreciate culture. Appreciate our backgrounds. Appreciate where you come from. What you can do in order to make this world a better place for everyone.
Yes, absolutely. That so let me ask you another question that has to do. You came from Greece, with your bachelor degree as
Mm,
a foreign student, I presume, right? So
mm.
what was the biggest challenge that you had to face here in US while going through your advanced degrees, your PhDs, and through your actually researches? It's actually, by the way, for everybody to know, it's quite fascinating to see how many things Dr. Kafka, had her hands on in terms of research.
Um, I love research. There was no challenge there. Challenge was that I never had enough data. Challenge was that I never had enough time to do everything at the same time. I can tell you the a funny story here. Um, as I said, I am from Athens, so throughout the university, I was staying with my parents.
Mhm.
Very posh undergraduate experience, right? My mother was still taking care of the household. I was focusing on my studies, my friends, my whole world. Nothing changed for me. And then from there, I went from Athens to India, to Bloomington, Indiana, to go to Indiana University. So I had my apartment, I had my everything settled. I was so proud of myself. I had a full scholarship. I didn't have to pay for anything. So first day I was there, I went to supermarket. Gonna cook, shop for the week, right? And I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna cook. And oh my gosh, here I am adulting, and it's wonderful. I'm, 7 hours time difference, 8 hours time difference from home, but I can do it. So here I am with my shopping in my little apartment. And I was unpacking everything, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make pasta for dinner. In fact, it doesn't take a PhD to make pasta, right? So I was boiling water and everything. And at some point, I reached to the cupboard and I realized that I don't have salt. I forgot to buy salt because, salt was always at home, right? This is not something that you go buy every week. You just buy it. But this is when it hit me that I am 8 hours time difference away from home. I'm by myself. I don't know anyone. And if anything happens to me right now, no, I cannot pick up the phone and call anyone. I'm by myself. So I'd better take care of myself as much as I can. And this needs to be my priority. So that was kind of a shocking experience. It was a life-changing experience for me. Um, it was my first challenge to actually think ahead and plan ahead, even for trivial things. Because guess what? I can't exactly call my mom to come bring me salt. Having said that, right now I have like 5 bags, big bags of salt at home. There's no way I'm gonna ever run out. But you're talking about challenges. There are little things when you immigrate in a different country that you just don't think about. And we're taking it from granted. And that was 25 years ago. So before Skype, before, Zoom, before WhatsApp, I had a calling card, I remember. And I was actually, I had a running appointment with my parents every Sunday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon to call and talk to them for 20 minutes because that was the duration of the calling card. So
Yeah,
challenges like that we don't think about them right now, but back then, quote unquote, were very important.
I remember those days myself too.
Mm.
So since we are speaking about that, what is the salt and pepper of life and the salt of and the pepper of science for Dr. Kafka?
Salt and pepper of life is
Yeah,
people.
okay.
It's people. It's my people. It's people that I work with. It's people I connect with. It's my immediate family. I'm very fortunate to still have my parents around. And I'm actually leaving for Greece on Friday. I'm going to see them next week. It's my partner, who is my cheerleader. He's amazing. It's our dog. It's a little family that I made here in the US, but a couple of really very dear friends who have always been supporters, mentors for me, individuals who always have my back, which is extremely important. Um, Science, salt and pepper of science. Science by itself, salt and pepper. It's spicy and it's colorful and it's flavorful. So I don't think it needs anything different, and
Okay,
always keeps us on our toes. Yeah.
let's go then now next to another thing, which is before your current position, you were the executive director of a very prestigious organization, right? The American
American
Association of Variable
Association,
Star Observers. Tell us more
AVS,
about
I
that, because
guess.
that sounds so interesting to me, observing
Yeah.
the universe kind of.
So what's even more interesting about that organization is that it is a citizen science organization. So we were connecting professional astronomers with amateur astronomers for scientific projects. So there are lots of individuals out there who consider astronomy as a hobby. And as a subset of them had telescopes and observatories in their backyard. And they want to take scientific data. They really want to be involved in science. It's the beauty of astronomy. You can actually do it. Now, variable stars of background are stars whose brightness is changing within time scales we can measure, 2 or 3 hours a week. So a star is brightening and it's dimming in periodic or non-periodic ways within that time scale. So if you have a telescope or you have a camera, like the cameras that we have on our phone, you can take, if you take picture after picture after picture of this particular star, with respect to the rest of the stars, this is changed. It's brightening and it's dimming with time. And different, this is what we call a variable star, and different types of brightens and dimmings are telling us the reason why those stars are behaving that way. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to get too technical. The bottom line, though, is that if you have a telescope or a camera, and you want to take these observations, there is this wonderful organization called the AVSO, American Association of Variable Star Observers, that can actually provide you with education, the training, the background, even the database to take data and connects you with projects with professional astronomers who really, 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 really need that data for the scientific projects. So that's exactly what we were doing at the AVSO. It's an international organization. We had campaigns, we had astro parties, we had all kinds of educational and training programs for non-professional astronomers. We had observing section. Our sun is a variable star, actually. So we had a solar section of people safely observing the sun. And also all that data was going to a database for professional astronomers to use in their own research and manuscripts. And what's wonderful is that we're talking about high profile projects, right? When the TESS satellite was up, or a Kepler satellite were up, and they were mapping the entire sky for exoplanets, right? Earth-like exoplanets. We had a whole bunch of observers doing this kind of work alongside professional astronomers. So professional astronomers were taking the satellite data. Our observers were actually observing from Earth. So it's a fantastic synergy. It's a beautiful organization. It was really fun being there.
And before, we leave astronomy and go to your current position and the current endeavors on climate and meteorology. I don't think we, the average person, understand how much humanity learns from the astrophysics as a science. What would you say about that, since you are an expert in that field?
So why do you think that's true?
I think based on that research is like fundamental things changing, like our understanding, one, and B, I think technology itself advancing sometimes because of that.
So you're making an excellent point. Technology sometimes needs a reason to advance. So because we as astronomers are trying to detect things that are small, that they have a very small difference in measurement. What's beautiful about astronomy is you can't be creative in the way that you're measuring things, but sometimes you're limited by technologies. Technology is advancing a lot exactly because of astronomy. As I mentioned, cameras, right? Right now, the camera that you have on your phone is capable of taking pictures of stars, right? But and that's because we have advanced CCD cameras and all kinds of DSLR cameras, etc. Science is meant to describe nature around us. Science is also meant to be providing means for improving our lives. When science is not improving our life anymore, then and there's no promise for it, then at some point it's becoming a luxury. That's what I'm thinking. So astronomy can definitely improve our lives in terms of providing knowledge, not only technology, knowledge that you never know how we're going to use here on Earth. And sometimes it might take 10, 20, 30 years in order to identify an appropriate application, but the knowledge never always produces possibilities for humankind. All we need to do is actually be smart and keep our eyes open.
Great. So we're gonna leave that subject for a moment, and let's go to your current position that you are actually the executive director of the American Meteorological Society. So tell us about the organization and what it does, because although it's characterized as a national organization, I do understand that you do a lot of international stuff or things or cooperate.
Yeah, we do love. So it's the American Meteorological Society is another 100-year-old organization uh, whose mission is to advance atmospheric and related sciences, technologies, applications, services for the benefit of society. So weather, water, climate, as simple as that. That's what we do. Also, the AMS is a professional society. Most scientific organizations focus a lot on academics, but our membership and our community consists of individuals both from academia and industry, but also with the government here in the US. So we're bringing all aspects of the enterprise together, all individuals of the enterprise together to understand some of the most dynamic and crazy phenomena in the universe. I'm not going to tell you more about the work of some of our members. I'm pretty sure that you have been following crazy weather patterns, especially with two major hurricanes going through the southern parts of the US, right? Helene and Milton. Some of our members were up front and center, and it was the hardest time to even get my board members together because they're NOAA and National Weather Services officials who had to oversee all kinds of aspects of those kinds of operations. So the AMS is actually bringing people together through different programs, right, and services. We have journals, scientific journals, where scientists are they're writing up their discoveries and publishing them. So that this is how we help science circulate. We also have meetings, conferences that are bringing everybody together. Our flagship is our annual meeting, which is in January. And it actually last year we broke our own record. We had more than 7,000 attendees in Baltimore. This year we're expecting the same. Actually, we're expecting to break that record too. Ask me again later. But we also have topical and much more specialized conferences on hurricanes, for example, or severe storms, or even broadcast meteorologists. They have their own conference. We have a professional development set of services who provide certification, accreditation. So when you watch the Weather Channel or any channel and you see the name of your favorite meteorologist, if right next to it, it says CBM, it's a certified broadcast meteorology certification they have from the American Meteorological Society. We also have an education department. Our philosophy is teach the teachers. This is K through 12, and we have programs for teachers that help them bring weather, water, climate aspects of science in their classroom. And we do have a policy program. We have all kinds of studies. We have a summer policy colloquium. So the AMS has, and we're doing public outreach as well, right? Trying to reach out to individuals with correct information, scientific information, trying to combat misinformation right there. So the American Med Society is different than the AMS, right? But at the same time, it's providing services that atmospheric scientists need in order to actually build a community of practitioners who work towards understanding atmospheric phenomena here on Earth, how the Earth's atmosphere and oceans working, and how weather develops and evolves.
So speaking about okay, go ahead, Go ahead.
There is a lot of there's a lot of variations of the theme. Let
Yeah.
me stop here. Yeah.
So speaking about that, and speaking since you started with the weather, right, and the climate
Mm.
and all the abnormal observations we have, I would like to ask you this question: how much, nowadays, the public, the people, or the leaders listen to the science, to the scientists
Mm.
on what we're doing to our climate and to our environment?
So how much they listen? There's certain states in the US where you cannot talk about climate change. The two words together are you're not allowed to mention them in a sentence.
Oh boy.
So I'm not going to mention specifics, but it's true. So at some point, people realize that, we have politicized words, and that is bad in so many different ways. Reminds me of Harry Potter, right? He who shall not be named. Names matter. You have to name things the way they are. Otherwise, they become your own demons, and it's really scary. Um, Maybe we don't discuss with everybody climate change. What we talk about, though, and it's documented, it actually comes from people's experiences, is an intensification in the frequency and strength of erratic weather phenomena. If you live in Florida right now, you had two major disasters back to back, which had never happened before, ever in the history of the state. All right. And then before that, you had other serious storms coming through. If you live in California, the whole state is dry, wildfires making the whole state smoke. And this is becoming worse and worse every year. So, although you can't exactly talk to people with scientific terms because A, B, or C reason, you can always actually discuss with them experiences that they have that showcase that the whatever they knew about their state or um, whatever for the last like 30 years is not valid anymore. And it gets even more serious, right? When you go to states that are based on agriculture, because of changes in weather patterns and even seasons, people really need to rethink what kind of crops they're growing in their own, backyard. And that affects their livelihood, that affects their lives, that affects the way that they provide income for themselves and their family. That provides uncertainty, and uncertainty is scary.
So
So science is describing nature. That's all that science does. I mean, the whole idea that science is a cult and scientists are cult members whose sole, I don't know, uh, purpose in life is to fool everyone is kind of silly, I think. Now, there has been a lot of studies out there by Research America or the Pew Centers, the think tanks out there trying to understand the relationships between between US citizens, right, and science, whether they trust science, whether they support science, whether they trust scientists. And here's a fun fact. In 2023, 71% of individuals who were asked could not name a living scientist. 71%, a living scientist. And out of the rest, can you guess how many who was number one or number two?
oh, tell us. That's very interesting. No,
Number one was Neil deGrasse Tyson,
uh-huh.
and number two was Tony Fauci. 2023, right? We just went through COVID.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's actually tragic. As scientists, we're not part of people's lives. And this is something that at the AMS we're really trying to change. trying to provide more role on science, up front and center. Here are your examples. But overall, as scientists, we need to embrace and do something about it, because the bottom line is most science is being funded by taxpayers.
So yeah, that's really interesting data. But given your position, right, and what you've seen, would you consider that, or what's your opinion, is, the climate situation the biggest threat that human beings and Earth is facing nowadays, or not?
I think it's the biggest existential crisis we're in. And actually, the biggest crisis, now we're getting to philosophy. I think that our biggest challenge that is really catastrophic, and we have to blame ourselves for that, is misinformation and disinformation. We're trying to manipulate each other.
Oh, tell us more about that.
Disinformation, that's an example. Here's an example, right? I talked about two big hurricanes going through Florida. There was an elected official who came out and said that scientists control the path of hurricanes and they send them through those states. And then broadcast meteorologists and scientists started receiving death threats for doing their job. When you're demonizing scientists, when you're trying to discredit them, and when you're threatening them, we're making lots of steps backwards. Because something, individuals who were at FEMA, at the very front line, trying to save human lives, broadcast meteorologists who lost their sleep because they saw that they looked at the data and there was nothing they could do to avert that hurricane. And they knew lives would be lost, and property, but lives, because of the strength of the storm. And then instead of actually not only thanking them, you threaten them because somebody made something up and they took advantage of their post to share it with individuals who just don't know better.
Yeah.
I think that's an example. It's a bigger threat than climate change. Climate change is a threat for us as a species. Yeah.
Yeah. So killing the messenger definitely, is nonsense and will not help anything. But that comes to my next question. Next question, which is, what can we do? An average, individual on the planet. What can we do, to help the situation, or what's the solution?
It's a super interesting question you're asking, and I've been thinking about this for such a long time. And there are older people who are like, just reuse your mug, right? Just don't use plastic as much as you can, recycle as much as you can, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, we all do our due diligence to protect the environment, and that does make a difference, right? When it comes to climate change, it's even trickier because this needs to be addressed at the government level in all countries in the world. Let me give you an example here. Do you remember the time when smoking was allowed on the plane? I remember that, right?
Yeah.
The second half was for smokers, and the first half was for non-smokers, which is the biggest nonsense I can even think about right now. Like, really? So it's a similar thing, right? So you're like, oh, what can I do to have a healthy flight? And people tell you, oh, just don't smoke. Like, great, I'm gonna get on the plane and not smoke. But if everybody else does, so what are we doing here, right? So this is pretty much the big challenge we have with climate change. This is why the United Nations had the Congress of the Parties COP that is starting, I think, next week. All those conversations that need to happen, and a consensus among all countries of the world that we all agree, we're making a commitment to ourselves and to each other that we're going to take action and try to reduce emissions and have more green energy and encourage our citizens and build infrastructure for cheaper energy, etc., or finding a way to replace old cars or whatever. So there are things that we can do about the environment, the place we live in, our home, on a day-to-day basis. When it comes to climate change, it has to be a bigger picture sort of solution. And let's see what happens the next couple of weeks in Baku,
Absolutely.
Azerbaijan.
Azerbaijan is the next. Let's talk like very quickly about that,
Okay.
because I can ask questions for days here. But I want to ask one last question before we open it to questions. So it's a conference that you are going in Azerbaijan, right?
I am not going to that one.
Oh, you're not going to there, but it's happening there.
No, it's happening there. I was in Dubai last year. It happens at Azerbaijan. I have a different obligation. I have to be somewhere else.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the last question, then I'm gonna open to the Q&A period. But the AMS right now is a not-for-profit organization, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and it's a humongous not-for-profit organization. So I would like to ask, how is it, to run, such a big, humongous not-for-profit organization? What are the challenges, and what is the biggest key to have a not-for-profit running smoothly or productively?
So, let me start by saying that the not-for-profit designation is a tax status. What that tells you is that the money that we make, or the income that we make, goes back to the mission. Doesn't go back to anyone's pockets. Other than that, a business is a business. So the AMS has specific income lines. I mentioned publications and meetings, accreditation, all those things. All those things are bringing in money for the organization. So in principle, it's like running a business. Now, AMS is considered more of a medium-sized organization. We have an $18 million budget, 85 staff members, and it's serving a very passionate and very diverse community. So running an organization like that is a lot of directing traffic to see where people want to go and how they get there, and make sure that they don't step on each other. We have a really vast governance structure of council and committees and commissions and boards and subcommittees, et cetera, that are doing a lot of work alongside our staff. So we work a lot with volunteers at the AMS. We have about 1,500 volunteers, about 10% of the membership of the AMS volunteering. So running all these, it's the biggest challenge actually for me is to be everywhere when I want to. So I have double booked myself several times in committee meetings because I'm very excited about everything that they're doing. But the most important part is for each one of us to understand where we belong in this AMS puzzle and what our unique roles are, and rely on each other, that we each will do our due diligence and our part in order to make sure that the whole machine is working. And my role is actually to make sure to oversee that whole machine, make sure that it is working, among other things. So I have to tell you, I'm really enjoying running it. It's a fun organization. It's not without its challenges, but hey, life's challenging.
Oh, absolutely. So with this, I would like to thank you for being here tonight, and you really make us proud for heading that particular organization. I know that a fellow Greek is heading that organization, and